Hello there. Welcome to this live demo today. Now, today we're going to be doing a little bit of experimenting to see how we can use AI technology to help us write grants. Now, writing grants for nonprofits can be one of the most time-consuming tasks, and it is ongoing. I've been writing grants myself for many years, so I have a good sense of the time it takes to write them, from big grants to small grants. And even as someone who has been doing this for a really long time, writing a good grant that will be successful takes time. And that, I think, is the biggest barrier, or one of the biggest barriers a lot of nonprofits face, especially if they have a small team, especially if they don't have anybody on their team dedicated to grant writing or even fundraising. Because these small grants, and I use quotes here, can take me, someone who's been doing this for years and years, between 4 and 6 hours to complete. Even just the writing, not to mention all the work that goes in before and after actually writing the grant. And that's on the smaller size. It can even be longer if it's for a project or an organization that I'm not really very familiar with, or if the grant is particularly complex. And I don't know if this is something a lot of grant makers realize or even think about, is the collective time it takes for not just one organization, but all of the organizations that are applying to the opportunity, how long it takes them to put all this work together. And then if it's successful, how long it takes for them to fulfill the reporting requirements and all the other things that come with the grant once it has been awarded. And especially, I see these massive callouts for applications covering a broad cause area. The application can take even 8 hours. And if you think of the thousands of organizations who are applying to this, remember, they're also applying for multiple grants every month. It's an incredible amount of work and hours dedicated to the process, and not just one person. Often it will be multiple people in an organization contributing to the grant. And a lot of these applications just aren't successful. So that's sort of the biggest hurdle I see. And when I was doing grants primarily as part of my business, it was also a hurdle for me as well, trying to figure out how to make the process more efficient so that I can scale up and serve more clients. And it was really difficult to do because it is such a time-consuming process. So if we can cut down on the time it takes to make this happen, then I really want to know, I want to figure this out. So as grant writers, as people working in the industry, I think we should always be on the lookout for new tools that are going to make our jobs easier and help us to free up time for other things. My name is Kim Peterson and I own Cedar Fundraising. I am a fundraising consultant helping growth stage nonprofits build and grow their individual giving programs. But like I said, I've been writing grants for a long time. And so while this is not necessarily the focus of my business or services at the moment, I do understand that it's a really critical part of revenue generation for many nonprofits, and especially small nonprofits. And I'm also a proponent of holistic and diversified fundraising, which is why I still speak to grant writing and strategy, because it is all part of the mix for everybody. If you do find this video helpful or interesting, it'd be great if you could like it, share it with your network, follow me, or connect with me if you haven't already. I do make reference to a couple of resources which I'm providing, and you can hit that link, provide your email, and I'll send them to you. We'll go over them a little bit later. But for now, we'll just dive into the demo, our grant writing demo using AI technology. That's why we're here. There's a lot of anxiety around the grant or AI technology and hesitation about doing it because it seems really complicated. And I like trying out new things and seeing if I can get them to work. It doesn't worry me as much. And I do want to encourage everybody to give it a try. But just to give you a sense of where I'm coming from, I'm not on a scale of 0 to 10, like 0 being someone who doesn't know how to use email and 10 being someone who can program software. I would say I'm in the middle, tech savvy wise, like a 5 or a 6, right? So I'm not one of those people who can code a website or anything like that, but I can set up email automations, or I can do restreaming like I am here. So that's where I'm coming at when learning this technology. Open to learning new tools, as I think we all should be. And I also want to say too that this is an emergent technology. So it's really new. It's only been in the last few months that it's really caught on and that it's been publicly available. And it's also rapidly changing. If you follow this at all, you will see from where we were in January is totally different where we are right now. So So this is being recorded, and if anybody is watching this months down the line, it will likely be that this is out of date. This video is out of date. And I'm not even joking. So it's all the more reason I think that we embrace this technology and learn as we go so that when we are 6 months ahead, we're not completely lost and baffled, and it's even harder to hop on. Okay, so I wanted to start off with an explanation of what ChatGPT is. So this is the tool that I'm using in the demo. There are a lot of AI technologies out there right now. ChatGPT is one of the most prominent for whatever reason. Somebody smarter than me about AI technology will know why, but this is the one everybody's able to use at the moment. It's free. Like I think there's a paid version, but there's a really useful free version, and it's also really user friendly. Artificial intelligence technology designed to generate human-like text based on the input it receives. It uses a technique called deep learning to analyze and understand the patterns and structures in the text. And it allows it to generate new text that is similar in style, tone, and content to the input it receives. So you'll see that. So basically it means you give it information, kind of synthesizes it and spits out output that sounds like a human talking to you. And it's pretty trippy. So I'm, again, using AI's chat. OpenAI is the company that runs chatbot or ChatGPT. And if you want to start playing around with this, all you need to do is go to the website and set up an account. The website is openai.com. And you can then access the chatbot from a plugin on your browser, or you can just go right to your browser, like if you're going to your email or your Gmail. Dive right into the tool here. So here's ChatGPT. And you can see here that we've got on this side here is just a history of all your chats. So you can see what I've been doing. And then on this side is the actual chat bot, which is where everything happens here. Okay, so you can say hello. So you can start with a question, give it some information or context, or have a conversation. If you haven't given this a try already, it's really worth just diving in and having a little bit of fun and seeing what you can do. So we've got our ChatGPT open. Then we'll also be using a grant application today for the demo, not a free form proposal. Something that has some set questions and parameters for the information that we're providing. And the one I'm using today is from a credit union, which is local to me here in British Columbia. And it turned out to be a really good one to use as an example because it has a lot of elements to it that is going to cause any writer to have a really hard time. And it's something that shows up on a lot of grants, which you might be familiar with. The first thing that is kind of tricky on this one is that it has really strict character limits that make it extremely hard to answer the questions. And this one, not just word limits, this one has character limits, and it includes spaces as well. So it's a very, very restrictive form. The questions are also not very clear, and they're a little bit repetitive. So these are kind of common frustrations that you'll come to see. And I think that these are some things that the ChatGPT uniquely can solve for you. Okay, so we've got our grant application, we have our chat bot, and the last thing we need is a source of information for what's going to be going into the grant. Now, the way these chatbots work is that they scan through existing sources on the internet. So if you ask it a question, they will sort of rake through all of the existing information about that topic, and then they will use that to combine it to come up with an answer for you. So it's kind of like Google in that sense, but way more sophisticated. So you can definitely write a grant from scratch with nothing written if it's on a topic that has already been extensively written about. And it probably depends on the proposal as well, and the questions that are being asked as well. I would recommend not doing that just because, as we know, grants need to be incredibly detailed, they need to be specific, and they need to speak to the funder's priorities. So there needs to be some very unique information being plugged into this grant. So I do suggest having some written information, or a lot of written information about your project or your organization on hand and ready to go, because you're going to want to give this to chat to help it come up with the answers. So you can have things like a project brief. You could have previous grant applications are probably really helpful. There are a lot of different ways that you can pull this information together. I think you can even probably just have a bullet list of things if it's something that's really new and that you haven't written about before. What I use and what I think probably a lot of grant writers use are templates with questions that you'll typically see on a grant application and then pre-written answers, which you can then sort of like massage to fit the application that you're working on. So one of the resources that I do have at the link is the template that I use, and I call it the mother of all grant templates, because what I did kind of months and months ago was I had gone through, I think it was probably like 30 applications, 30 grant applications, and I pulled out all of the questions from every single one, and then I grouped them together so that when you're writing these, chances are the questions that you have on the application you're working on are going to be on this template, and then you have an answer already ready. So I have that template available. I will definitely send it to you. It can be helpful even if you're not using ChatGPT to write your grants. Okay, so those are the 3 things that you want to have on hand. And then also just to in regards to pulling that information out from the internet, like I said, chat goes and kind of like rakes and pulls information from all sources. And one of the shortcomings of the technology, or maybe one of the, I don't know if you want to call it like a red flag, but something that just to be aware of is that number one, chat won't give you references. So if it comes up with a stat that looks really good and you ask it where it got that stat from, at least when I tried it, it won't tell you. Number 2 is it will make stuff up. Like if it can't find information, it will make something up that sounds really good, that sounds right, based on the information that it has available. And so I think this is sort of like where that human part comes in, especially for grant writing, is that you have to know your subject well and know your organization well, so that if you're reading something and it does not sound right, that you just take it out, or you could even tell chat, you can say that's not correct, and it might correct itself, because like I said, it's a learning technology. So just be aware of that before you start going into it. Yeah, so for the demo that we have, I have some sample writing that is actually from an organization that I've worked with and a project that they've done. I've taken out all of the identifying information so that even if you can't, I don't know if you can see it close enough, but if you can, it won't really identify them. And I've pre-written out everything so you don't have to watch me type everything out, which can be a little tedious. Right, so let's go. So when you start with your bot, you need to write what's called a prompt. So that's what this is here when I'm telling what it's doing. And the prompt is basically like a question, or you're providing information, or you're giving it some guidance and telling the bot what you want it to do. I've got my prompts rewritten here. So for this one, I'm pasting it over. I'm telling it I'm writing for an organization. I'm saying I'm going to give you some information about the organization as well as the program that needs funding. Then I'll ask some questions about the grant application. Can you help me answer these questions? And then I'm also putting in here the note that on the application, there are character limits for each question. So we need to keep the answers within these limits. The character limits include spaces. Okay, so we'll see what it says here. Okay, so it says, go ahead, give me some information. So I'm going to plug in just a ton of stuff, just some information about the organization and the project that we're writing the grant on. So for this one, it's a mental health organization, and the program is for youth. It's like a student mental health. And this is about what I'm plugging in. It's like not a huge amount. It's probably like a page typed information. And basically all it is that I had pulled out was like the mission, some basic information about the organization, what it does, and then some information about the program specifically. This is like standard question, right? Like you see this everywhere. You probably have something already ready, which you might not have, which you probably don't have, is that question written within 245 characters with spaces. And you have a little bit more space to add a thing here or there if you need to. Okay, that's pretty straightforward, and I really like that. All right, so the next question, we're going to summarize the project in 535 questions, or sorry, characters. So pulling the information from what I've already given it, right? So you can see that's not a, like, the project information I gave it was huge. Like this is, I don't know how many characters this is, but it's a lot. It's condensed it down into this one little paragraph, which I really like. Okay. And if you read through this and you think, okay, like, well, this is like getting there, but not really what I'm looking for, In ChatGPT, they have this regenerate response button, and it'll do it again for you, right? You can rate it if you want. Let's say we like that one better. I think that all that does is help the technology. And then you can toggle back and forth. So you can like look at either one. You can, oh, I like this one. This one's better. Like, you can do it a few times. So that's a really helpful thing too, right? Just to get some different options for you. Okay, and then also what you can do is if you're looking at that and you're saying, oh, that's really good, but there's like something very key that we're missing here. Like, for example, this is a student mental health program. They're talking about some of the things that they're doing. But one of the really key things maybe that we want to add is that as an organization, we work directly with school districts. So I can say, can you rewrite this to include that we will be working closely with the local school district? And then they'll rewrite it with that piece in there. Okay, so you can copy and paste its original thing, take it to a working document and just sort of massage it yourself. Or you could add in the additional information that you want to see and see what chat comes up with. Okay, so you can see how it's like really a conversation and it's an iterative process. Okay, and then for the last one, we're going to do one more. And I picked this question because it is a beast of a question. I don't want to show it. I can't really toggle over to it now, but it's like 800 characters. It's a 5-part question. This is one of those ones that I would look at and just like want to call it a day. I'd be like, why do I need to spend the next hour finagling with this question here? But before we ask the question, I'm going to give it some additional information to see what it does. And I haven't tested this, so I'll see how it handles this. I said, for the next question, I'm going to give you a little bit of extra information, and then I'll ask the question. So here's additional information. The needs assessment data we're using is from this website, the Canadian Mental Health Association website. And then I've given it a website. So let's see what it says. Okay, asking us to go ahead. And then here's the 5-part question. Holy moly. Do I have a character count in here? Yes, I do. A character limit of 830. Okay. So I think that's maybe one way to get around this lack of sourcing and maybe the danger of making stuff up is feeding it specific sources that you want to cite. Okay. Let's see what the character count of this is. So we're just going to hop back to me. Okay, so you can see how this can really get you going. Start generating some answers to use in your application. And then from here, what I would do is just cut and paste it over to a working document so that you can go through the answers yourself or with your team. You can add additional details. Okay, so my honest review of this process is, like a lot of people using these chatbots and what people are talking about right now, is that this technology is so amazing. Like, it's just absolutely incredible to me that this is where we're at, that we have this tool at our fingertips and then it's free and that anybody with the internet can use this. It helps a great deal to get the words on paper, but it's just not everything. It's not going to let you write an 8-hour grant in 30 minutes. But I do think it'll help you cut back on some time significantly, and that it is going to be a time saver in a lot of areas of this work, especially for small teams that don't have a lot of extra time. It can be a really huge game changer. Now, I did a video a few months ago about collaborative grant writing and a process that I have used myself to write grants with a team to help make the process easier for organizations with no fundraisers or no grant writing support. And so I'm linking to that in the comments if I haven't already. But anyways, I think taking that system, that collaborative grant writing system, and plugging in this ChatGPT technology can make it even better. Like, I think you're going to save a lot of time with this. I do think that there are some things you have to watch for, like what I've mentioned before, but I see myself using this definitely as a consultant working with nonprofits, setting up these systems for my clients. So I will be doing this at some point. And what I will suggest is to create that template, which or create the info sheet from the template that I will make available to you, having that to use as sort of like your main document and using that with ChatGPT to create these applications. You can use this tool for grant writing, but there are so many other things that you can do. And once you start playing around with it and using it, you can kind of get a sense of some of the other tasks and ways to generate ideas ideas that this will be useful for. So some of the things would be coming up with answers to unique questions that maybe aren't on your template, those finicky character counts or word counts, which we encountered with this application. Things like writing cover letters or emails where you just need to get something on paper so that you can refine it later. It's a huge time saver. And then of course, reporting, that piece that for following up that you need to do to share the information, where it doesn't need to be like gold star compelling content. It just needs to kind of get the information that they're asking for onto paper. Some other things too, you could use the ChatGPT to come up with a workflow or process for writing grants at your organization, including document management, which a lot of people struggle with. And then finally, researching the funder, if they're especially prominent, to understand their priorities and use that as a way to create content and an application that is compelling for that specific grant funder. And speaking of that specifically, I know there might be some people who write grants and fundraisers who are seeing this, who are saying, but grant writing is not just writing grants. There's so much else to it. Just like fundraising in general, there's relationship building components, speaking to the funder if you can. There's the research part of it and the follow-up part of it as well. It's a little bit more involved than just writing grants. So that's why I think that this technology, while useful and helpful, is not going to replace people on your team yet. We're not there yet. We still need people who can think strategically, who can pull compelling stories and heartwarming stories from the work that organization does and translate that into your grant. You're still going to need people who understand the process and understand how to connect with funders and build those relationships so that your grant writing is as effective as it can be, just like any other part of your fundraising program. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here so much. Like this video, you can subscribe or follow me and also share with someone who could benefit from this discussion.